So I like this experiment because it involves a lot of our previous lessons, like kneading a seed in order to crystallize, and dissolving a crystal in water and then separating them. We've learned that heat helps difficult reactions to occur. We've learned the difference between a physical change and a chemical change, and many, many more. In the saltwater experiment, we dissolved salt in water, and you couldn't see the salt anymore because the salt dissolved and disappeared. The salt and the water became one molecule. But if you tried it with pepper, the pepper will not dissolve in the water. No matter how much you stir, the pepper and the water will stay separated. Now, sugar will also dissolve in water, but there's always going to be a max. You cannot dissolve a full cup of sugar into a little drop of water. It's impossible. There is a maximum amount that can be dissolved into the liquid, and the rest will just sit there. But if you heat it up, even more sugar will dissolve and disappear into the water. And this is called supersaturation, when more is dissolved than what is normally allowed. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to oversaturate our water with a lot of sugar. You will need patience for this because we will slowly add the sugar as the water heats up. But I promise you it'll be worth it. Oh, and you'll want your safety equipment. So bring a cup of water to a boil, and then we'll add 3 cups of sugar to the water, but only half a cup at a time. And stir until it dissolves and the water becomes clear again. The first cup of sugar should be easy to dissolve, but as you add more and more sugar, it will be harder and harder to get the solution clear. Now, I've only added 1 cup of sugar, and you can already see that the water is turning slightly yellow, and it's getting thicker. And once it gets clear, add the last cup. Notice the sugar getting harder to dissolve and the water getting thicker. And you can tell it's getting thicker because even though it's the same amount of water, it fills the pot a lot more. Do you remember our viscosity experiment from last week? If this water is becoming thicker and stickier, is it becoming more or less viscous? That's right. It's becoming more viscous because it's becoming thicker and stickier. Now that all the sugar is dissolved, you can see that the water isn't as cloudy. It's still thick, but it's more clear. So now we'll just let it cool for about 20 to 30 minutes. But after it's cooled, you can pour it into your cup or cups. You want them almost full. I wet my stick and put a little bit of sugar over it, but you'll definitely want to let it dry before you put it in there. And then you want it a few centimeters above. And then you're just going to leave it for a few days. And I don't know if you noticed, but these sugar crystals were immediately attracted to the stick and pulled towards the stick. So we'll check back in a few days and see what happens. This experiment is from sciencebob.com, and I'll leave a link to his website down in the description below. Now, the instructions say to let this sit for about 3 to 7 days. I let it sit for 6. If you look, there's definitely still some liquid, but most of the sugar has recrystallized, and some of it has even recrystallized around the edge of the cup. But if we're careful, we can break the crystals on top and around the edge, and we will be able to pull the stick out with our candy still attached. Let's give it a try. Okay, so this is far from a perfect rock candy, but I mean, still delicious. 6 days may have been a little bit too long to let it sit, so I'd probably suggest a little bit less. It was extremely hard to try to bust this out of the cup, so maybe try like 3 or 4 days. Now, usually you don't want to eat your experiments, but we made this one specifically for eating. Just like when you cook your food, there is a lot of science that goes on, but you still eat it, right? But what chemical reaction occurred here? Well, we supersaturated our water with a lot more sugar than what's allowed at room temperature. And we did this by adding heat and increasing the temperature of the water. And that allowed more sugar to dissolve and disappear. Makes sense. But what happened after? While it was just sitting there for days in the cup. As the temperature of the water decreased back down to room temperature, all of that extra sugar had to pull out of the water. It had to undissolve and reappear. And just like the super cooled water experiment, there needed to be a seed, somewhere where the crystals could grab on and start forming. And the stick was our seed. This is where the sugar could grab hold and pull itself out of the water and undissolve and reappear. Simple enough, right? But what does this have to do with God? We can bring people into a community, into this world, and let them just dissolve, just like the sugar dissolves in the water. Or we can heat things up a little bit, try to dissolve more sugar in the water, become more involved, to give more help, to try harder to make things better for our community and for our world. Don't just exist, actively live, actively try to help and make things better. Don't just live in your community, act in your community. So go out there and get more involved. I too am trying to become more involved in our community. So if you know of any volunteer opportunities that are coming around in our area, please let me know. I did a spooky science Halloween out in Ann Arbor, and I'm going to do a child abuse event out in Dearborn. So if you know of anything within the area, please let me know and I'll do my best to try to make it to the event. This is another great gift idea. Personally, I feel like homemade gifts are way more meaningful and they're cheap. And just like the slime, you can either make it and give it to them as the gift, or you can make a kit so that they can make it themselves. It's a little bit more fun that way. But either way, this is a great gift idea. And with the holidays right around the corner, I challenge you to embrace the true meaning of Christmas. Whatever that is for you, just find it and embrace it this holiday season. For me, it's God and family. So that's where I'm going to try to focus most of my time and energy this holiday season. And until next time,